Hello and welcome to Women in Data. My name is Alex Kayette, VP of Sales at Caserta. I'm a new mom and also support a handful of our enterprise clients from an account management perspective. I get to work side by side with some of the best and brightest consultants in the business. In honor of International Women's Day this week, I wanted to celebrate the successes of the women leaders around me and host a panel about their career paths, personal experiences, and what it's like working in data and analytics. According to Girls Who Code, although 57% of bachelor's degrees are earned by women, only 12% of them are in computer science. Some ways that we can encourage more women to want to pursue a career in data is by being female role models and motivating those that feel like they don't belong. Our panel today intends to do just that. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists. Aileen Blass is an enterprise data strategist with experience developing and implementing data strategies and solutions for clients. One of her focus areas is helping organizations leverage their data as an asset through data adoption and data governance programs. She's a mother of two and mastered the art of working from home 20 years ago before COVID made it the norm. Maria Boyejeva is a fellow new mom and data engineer with over 20 years of experience managing, designing, and architecting large data and analytics projects. Her primary focus has been data integration, migration, and re-architecture of data warehouses, including data governance and MDM. She has deep experience with the Microsoft stack and is very hands-on architect and data modeler. Tara Mason is a data strategist and program lead that is invested in improving organizational information design and data strategy that builds a functional and lasting enterprise data architecture, as well as establishes enterprise analytics and builds a foundation of data management processes. She's a mother of two and lives in Richmond, Virginia. Thanks so much for joining us today. To get started, Aileen, I would love to hear from you. What motivated you to be a woman in tech?
Okay, so I started in this back when I was in college, and I went to college to be a food and beverage director in a hotel, and quickly found that the best part of doing those summer jobs was the computers at the time. And I just decided to follow my passion and quickly went back to school and switched my major into information systems. And then I was very lucky, Alex, early on in my career, I had two leaders that I worked for who hired me into positions based on my potential, not my experience, and just really helped show me that this was a wide open world that I could really embark on and be a part of the growth of. And I am grateful to those leaders that pulled me along. And that's one of my give backs for me now as a leader, is to pull those along and kind of encourage them to do something outside what they thought they were going to.
Great, wonderful. Maria, you want to share with us what attracted you to be a woman in tech?
Sure. I didn't grow up in the US, and so it started, I imagine, just a little different. It just sort of started like, oh, this is what I like to do, and then a bunch of adults gave me their input. My dad was the primary person who probably recognized the fact that I enjoyed math and doing and solving problems, and I spent countless hours with him doing algebra and geometry. As I went to high school and on, I was encouraged by my accounting and economics professors to try to join their fields. And I thought, oh, how boring. But because I did enjoy solving equations, the two paths that I saw at the time was organic chemistry or math related fields. And my accounting teacher was sort of like, I guess you're not going to join, but let me help you. And so she steered me into computer science and sent me off to a friend of hers who helped quite a bit. So yeah, eventually I ended up with a computer science degree. And I can't say I haven't looked elsewhere for other interests, but I'm enjoying the technology world a lot. So I'm here.
Great. So great to hear that both of you have been motivated and supported by male figures. Aileen, your dad, and Maria, some of your professors in the past. Tara, what about you? What motivated you to pursue the tech world?
Yeah, so I definitely had a meandering career path into technology. I started out wanting to do, sociology and environmental studies and science. And eventually I found a gap in my college studies. I needed to pick up some more classes, and off to GIS and intro computer science I went. And then I didn't like computer science at the time, but looking back, it was one of the foundational things that kind of built or helped me build this career in technology. So, following undergrad, I was a GIS analyst and just took on a bunch of different projects. GIS architecture, helping people with database design, database development, application development. I just ended up being in all of these different projects, and I got really interested in helping the business solve problems. And that's what keeps me going. And that's why I really love, what I do.
Great, thanks. It seems like some of your roles have changed over the years or evolved over the years. Tell me a little bit about your data journey and the roles that you have. Maria, what are some of the highlights in your career over the years?
I would have to say that working with health information and health data has been most rewarding. I have jumped on a couple of projects that dug deep into specific diseases, which is rather depressing to just find out the populations and cohorts that actually end up having to deal with that. But then providing that information to whoever is required that is going to make decisions about these people's lives and their health, and just having them drive initiatives that will address the health problems that a certain population is having. So I've been on one project here at Caserta that was that had to do with cancer research and having to address the difficulty of connecting specific researchers and their work and their doctors' work and the patients, and being able to provide personalized care to patients and really target specific cancer diseases, and just give the patient the best chance really to be able to overcome some of the diseases.
That definitely makes the work rewarding. Aileen or Tara, anything that you want to add around your data journey and the roles that you've had over the years?
I think like all of us, we did sort of meander through these. And for me, one of the things that I found was I took my two passions, which was hospitality, which is really what I went to school for and kind of grew up in that industry, and then data. And I was able to marry the two together. So I worked for a couple different hospitality companies. I worked for a cruise company and two different hotel companies, and took kind of my passion and interest in hospitality and then the data side and pull those two together. So for me, that was a lot of fun to do. And I've done that from project management side, program management, business education components. But I think like Maria, the part that I found actually the most rewarding was a project I worked on several years ago. And it was a health services project as well. And we were pulling together data that was out there for actually our Department of Defense to help change the way we treat our war veterans. And so to work on a project like that, where you're just doing the moving the data and creating the architecture for it, but you're giving these scientists and these doctors that information that they can change the course of someone's life. That's so rewarding. And really, for me, there's nothing better than that.
Great. Tara, talk to me a little bit about what it's like working in data consulting specifically, where you're encountering many environments and new people all the time.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely it's a great industry to be in because you learn about a lot of different cultures in the workplace. You get to meet people, all over the country, sometimes all over the world. And that can just be really eye opening and a lot of fun to experience. It can also be really challenging. I find, going into new clients, sometimes you're met with open arms. People are so happy to have help from an outside source for whatever reason, capacity issues or just feeling like they weren't able to overcome something, and having that external help, is really a great benefit. And then other times we're met with, the outsider syndrome, like, oh, stay away from our stuff, or, we got this. And so overcoming that by building relationships, up and down the organization, I think is always a challenge for us as consultants, but it's also really rewarding. And also, just maintaining those relationships through the client work and making sure that we're, delivering the best that we can, regardless of the situations.
Great. Eileen or Maria, does any of that resonate with you?
I think like Tara, in the consulting world, the new industries and the new projects that are constantly changing is the best and the hardest part of the job. But it is, I think, what drew me to consulting and when I stepped away from it for 2 years, what brought me back is I love the constant shift of the projects, of the type of work, of the sense of urgency you have as you start off a new project and the excitement that goes with that. Those are parts that I love. And as consultants, we have the luxury of being outside of the any of our clients' political challenges that they have. We just come in, we have a job to do, we get it done without having to worry about the bigger picture that you have to if you're actually in the industry. So I like the kind of escaping that political storm when possible.
You mentioned coming back to consulting. How has the experience in the workplace kind of evolved over time and since you came back to it?
So it's evolved tremendously. So when I first started, for example, and I'll date myself here, women had to wear skirts or dresses into the office every day. So that's clearly not the norm. It's probably not a single person here or watching that's wearing anything other than leggings, jeans, and slippers. So kudos to all of us for shifting that. But I think what's changed most was when I started, it was unusual if it was a woman in a managerial position or a director position, very few VPs. If clients came into our office and I happened to greet them at the door, it was assumed that I was the secretary because I was young and female. And I think so many of those things have just shifted away. Our culture as a whole outside the workplace and has shifted. There's a lot more diversity across, the work here, at least in the United States, a lot more acceptance of varying backgrounds. And it's not an odd thing for a woman to be the only one at the table, 6 men and 1 woman. It's still unfortunately not the right ratio we want to have it completely, but it's not an odd thing anymore. It's just a thing, which I truly appreciate. I look at companies like Caserta, and we have 3 women in key leadership positions on a company our size. We've got over 30% of our employees are women, and we're all top level consultants. So there's such room for growth for women in this industry. And that's what shifted. I don't think you would have seen that even 10 years ago, that you could have pulled a panel together, of a select group of us here at Caserta to do this today. So that to me is a big shift, and that we work in an environment, and I know not every place is like this, but we're not expected to be anything other than who we are. So we're celebrated for being women and working moms. We have a leader here who, really makes that easy, I think, for women to go off on leave and come back. I'll tell you, Alex, I know you were on a call. I was on the other couple weeks ago, and someone said, I'm not going to be on camera because I'm breastfeeding. Well, that wouldn't have happened a few years ago, but good for us that that's a norm today. And we just carry on with the meeting because that's what we can do. And I think the changes over time have been amazing.
Absolutely. So you mentioned having key leaders, obviously, on this call and represented women leaders within Caserta. Tara, how do you break through into a leadership role in a male-dominated environment or an industry that has historically been male-dominated?
Yeah. So I definitely think that it is a unique challenge, and we as women, the one thing I always go back to is, being supportive of each other in the workplace, and making sure that you're building relationships with all the people around you, finding mentors that can help you with your personal growth in your career and as a leader. Something that helped me break into leadership um, in my first, kind of official leadership role was really just years of taking initiative on projects that weren't necessarily in my job description. And so, you have to kind of get out there, definitely, in a way that might be, different than someone else in your organization, but taking on those extra roles or extra projects. And then also, I think being self-aware of how you can help and how people perceive you as a leader and as a peer is probably one of the biggest things in attaining leadership roles, if that's what you're interested in your career. And then also being effective, right? So if we can be self-aware, whether we're women, men, etc., that just helps the organization and makes us all better.
Great. Aileen, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've seen often with women that I've worked with is they can suffer from this imposter syndrome. Like, they're offered a position or put in a role, and they're like, "Oh, am I really good enough for this?" And so what I would tell anyone who's suffering from that is, you're not an imposter. You were given that opportunity. You worked for that opportunity. You're there. Prove it. Don't that self-doubt is what will hurt you for a long time. So if you have an opportunity to break into leadership, it's because you're going to put yourself out there, like Tara said, and try something new. And if you let that imposter syndrome mentality kind of control the way you behave, then you will miss those opportunities, because they're rarely handed to you. They're worked for, and they're earned, and they're fought for. And that's what we all want, right? None of us want to be given a position because we're female. We want them because we've earned them, and no one's doubting us for that. So we have to not doubt ourselves first.
Absolutely. Maria, what about your experience in a male-dominated environment?
Well, I have to absolutely second what Tara and Eileen said. It's every word is what I could have said, and we haven't even rehearsed this. And I think the other thing is that sometimes it doesn't. You enter into a situation and you are in a very good environment at work, and you almost don't know it. You don't know that because your colleagues are treating you equally. And like they said, you're given opportunities because you're working and you're doing a good job and you're moving projects forward, and people and your business clients and partners are happy what you've done. You would notice it when things turn around and all of a sudden you're being treated differently. That's when you notice that something has shifted, right? And the thing that I can suggest here for anybody is just to stay positive and call in your support network, and basically don't think that it's something you are necessarily doing that is driving that kind of a different behavior towards you. And the next thing is, you will find your new, like, extract yourself from that situation if you found yourself in where you're being disrespected or not, your opinions are being counted. So it's not running away. It's just taking care of yourself and moving on and finding another environment where you can be better, you can contribute. It's not, there are places where you can probably bring your opinion and it will be heard, but there's some places that are not, and there's nothing wrong with saying this is not for me and moving on. Just stay positive, and there are plenty of opportunities out there. Like Eileen said, there is the world is changing, and so all of that is you will find the right group of people to work with.
Absolutely. Aileen, what is the biggest challenge facing the data and analytics industry today? So for those that are considering kind of embracing this industry, what should they be aware of?
So I think two things on the front and the back end on that world, Alex. So on the front end, I would say one of the biggest challenges is one of the greatest things happening in this industry is the continual evolution and the new technology that comes out almost daily, it feels like. So there are amazing vendors out there and technologists who are creating more, better, faster ways for us to ingest data, to transform it, to store it, to use it in analytics. And one of the hardest parts is keeping abreast of all those changes and figure out which are the new shiny objects and which are the new things you really need to embrace and your trends that are going to happen. You know, it's that beta versus VHS, which one is the flash in the pan and what's going to have some long life. So that's one big challenge, but that's also one of the amazing things about this industry is if you're a learner, if you like to try new things, see new things, it will never stop in this world. And there are constant opportunities to look in the technology side. And on the back end, I think one of the other biggest challenges is getting the data out of the IT world and into the business hands and really used appropriately. So data science is all, it's become big recently, machine learning and AI, but it's more about the culture shift within the organizations. It's getting executives, directors, managers, and even those the new right out of college to have a common language around using data and making analytics more of a business concept than an IT one. And that's been a slow shift. And I think getting enough people on the business side to really embrace the power of what their data can do for them in their jobs and their company is one of the other big challenges we have out there today, but one of the ones I'm passionate about solving.
Yeah, absolutely, Aileen. You know, the challenge I think that has been in our industry for a long time still exists today, and that is really leveraging data or analytics to solve a business problem, to find a new insight, to generate new revenue. All of those business opportunities take time, and the technology helps, and it's definitely come a long way, and we're all thankful for that. But for us to really get use out of data and analytics, it takes an effort from business folks who understand the opportunities and can marry that with an implementation or a ML project, et cetera.
Yeah. Maria, you mentioned earlier working on a healthcare project and how that was one of the highlights of your career. How else have you seen data and analytics make a difference in organizations or just in people's lives generally?
So besides, the work that I do for work, I just look around just at my daily life, and I enjoy I'm quite interested actually in the idea of smart cities, and what that means is that there's all these publicly urban areas that collect a lot of data and information, and then they make it transparent about how the city runs, and that's very powerful because it will tell you about your utilities, waste, crime detection. Whatever it takes to run a city, then they turn around and they expose it, and you can have a look at that and say, oh, these are problems that can be solved, and they cannot only be solved by the city, but anybody can try to think about solving or contributing to how some of those issues are solved. So that transparency to me is is wonderful. And it's not just in smart cities. You know, this is, we have seen definitely a huge sort of like gates are open for open data sets out there. You can do NASA, you can do, you know, whale databases, you can do all sorts of, you know, Antarctica, like whatever comes to your mind basically has been exposed, and it will only get more and more. And I think that that's, if you want to make personal impact on somebody's life and you have ideas, it's really accessible to you, something that was not so even, you know, five years ago. Well, maybe a little longer, but yeah. And then I personally follow an organization. I'm sure there are other ones. The one I follow is called DataKind, and they're just a nonprofit that helps other organizations that don't have budgets for data projects, that try to solve problems from hunger to childcare. And you can volunteer for them if you want to, if you have time. Not that I can say I have much time now with the baby, but there's a lot of data is all around us, and it's we are seeing its tangible impact on, you know, our lives pretty much everywhere. At least that's how I feel.
Tara, how have you seen data and analytics make a difference in organizations or people's lives?
Yeah, so it's funny that both Maria and Aileen talked about healthcare use cases. You know, thinking about this topic, I remembered a couple years ago going to a presentation down the road from me at University of Virginia Health, and they had just recently done some analysis around, you know, positioning of operations for spinal cord injuries and spinal injuries. And they had used this analysis to understand that positioning of people in an operating room could cause downstream negative impacts to the patient, which of course for a provider was important from a cost perspective, but also, you know, preventative care, and looking at how they could improve positioning of patients, you know, during an operation that would help them recover faster. And so, you know, those are the kind of use cases that I think make us all excited to be in this industry, and to, you know, be part of helping find those use cases and bringing those to fruition for an organization, you know, is just what it's all about.
Great. Any additional comments or closing thoughts around your experience, career path, or just being part of the data and analytics industry?
I think, Alex, the last thing I would say is if this is something that you think you might be interested in, find an area, focus on it, dig deep, learn something new, go to a webinar, attend some online training, get into it and take a chance. Take a chance on yourself. This industry is only going to grow. I thought when I started in it 20 years ago that I was like right in the cusp, and I was there just at the right time. It's still just the right time. And I think it will keep being that way. So there's such an amazing opportunity. And every year I have more and more of my colleagues are women. So it's a great place to go and to grow, and it will just keep changing. So if you're of that mindset and you think you might be interested, go for it.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, I appreciate all y'all joining the call today and sharing your experiences, how things evolved over time, and just educating some of our viewers today about data and analytics more generally. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.